How's it going, everybody? This is Jay here with Fantasy Labs, and I'm joined here once again by Brandon Hopper. On the last pod, if you listened, I definitely lied about having another guest on for this pod. Brandon, how does it feel to know that our listeners weren't expecting you on this pod, only to have you on for the third
Yeah,
day in a row? Is
yeah,
there a chip on your shoulder?
yeah. I thought maybe I should do one of these, like surprise. Well, you said special guest, and
I don't know what I was thinking. I know.
well, I think I am sort of still special. I mean, three
That's
days in a row is pretty special. So
yeah, no,
yeah,
it's
I'm fine with it.
It's big time, man. I feel like I've been on the pod like 8,000 days in a row, and everybody's getting sick of me. And I don't know. I think my days are numbered before our legion throws a mutiny against me. But then I just think the opposite, and it's all good. So let's go ahead
Hey,
and
you keep turning out those good plays, and they're not going to care whose faces are on here.
yeah, I hope so. That's the plan. So let's go ahead and jump into this Wednesday, May 18th, 12 game slate. We're going to be talking about the main slate like we usually do. So this one has 12 games. So we'll start off with the usual and talk a little bit about Vegas data, early Vegas lines and whatnot for this slate. So kind of looking right off the bat, we kind of have the top few teams. We have the Cubs implied at 5 runs again. We have the Yankees in Arizona facing Shelby Miller implied at 4.9 runs currently. We have the Blue Jays currently implied at 4.6 runs, and then at the bottom, we have a pretty good range. We have the Braves, as usual, at the bottom, implied at just 3 runs. We have the Padres implied at just 3.1, and then we have the Giants implied at just 3.5. So uh, a good range of kind of teams and implied totals. So how this slate kind of feels like a in-between slate compared to the previous two we've discussed. We had the first slate, which was just horrible in every way. No one really played. And then last night's slate, well, tonight as of this recording, but we just had all the aces and so many good pitchers, lots of money to be spent on the pitching aspects. So this one kind of feels like in the middle. A lot of guys who are serviceable pitchers, a wide range of hitters to choose from. So how are you kind of comparing this slate to the previous two that we talked about?
Well, day one, but when it was garbage, it was kind of a good tournament slate. And yesterday or Tuesday's slate was such a good cash game slate. I'm a tournament player, and I didn't have success on Tuesday night, even though I had a few guys who I talked about do well, like Velasquez, but still I wasn't able to get above that mark. I'm a little more optimistic going into Wednesday's slate. So I'm excited to see what I can come up with some tournament plays.
Yeah, I think this slate kind of breaks down for a good cash slate as well as a good tournament slate. So kind of one that you want to get your feet wet in both aspects of the game. So let's start things off with our first topic we really get in depth with and talk about a couple pitchers that you're interested on this slate. If you want to start us off with the two guys you got.
Sure. So my first guy is Drew Pomeranz. He's 9,000 on FanDuel. He's got the highest K9 rate on the slate, just a tick under 12. Second highest pro trends. Currently, he's got 7. I have a personal trend that helps me find contrarian pitchers. A relatively small underdog, and you partner that with a K predictor, and he of at least 7. And it gives you a plus minus of positive 2.64, consistency of 57%. And he's been hot lately. He shoved it to the Cubs, 60 points, FanDuel points in 6 innings in his last performance. He paid 10 guys, only 3 hits, no runs. I would like to see him work a little bit later into the games. He's only worked 7 full innings once this season. But when you have a high strikeout pitcher who's not an elite pitcher, like, Kershaw's elite, Pomeranz is an elite. When you have a high strikeout pitcher who's not elite, they have to work deeper into counts, and then they don't get deeper into games. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Mm-hmm.
He did face the Giants earlier this season, and I told you yesterday about Velasquez. I don't like going with a pitcher who just faced the guys not long ago, just faced that opposing team. But it worked for Velasquez. We'll see if it works for him tomorrow. My other guy I like is Johnny Cueto. Same game. So if you're on FanDuel or on DraftKings, I don't know if you wanna go both in one. I don't know. I'd defer to you on that. but his best pitch is his fastball, and the Padres are awful at hitting fastballs, which just seems weird. Like, that should be the easiest pitch to hit. I know it's human.
I think that just means you're awful at hitting.
Yeah, exactly. He's the top guy on as far as the K predictor goes, 7.5. It's actually tied with Lackey. 85% bargain rating on FanDuel. There's 4 rosterable pitchers who are bigger favorites than Cueto, so I'm hoping that kind of keeps his ownership levels down tomorrow. The Padres have the 4th highest K rate on the main slate. Let's see. He's got a plus 6.32 plus minus this season. Only 2 times he's allowed more than 3 earned runs, and he's got a great park rating tomorrow. Also, 56% ground ball rating is the highest among rosterable pitchers, unless you want to roster Fisher or Rusin, who are I think we'll skip over them. So those are my 2 guys. What do you think? Who do you like?
Yeah, those are solid for sure. I like both. I'm a big fan of Pomeranz, definitely. The 2 guys I'm looking at, first off, I'm looking at Francisco Liriano a little bit. He does get to face the Braves, who have a team strikeout rate of over 25% against left-handed pitchers. They have by far the worst team WOBA against lefties as well. So, coming into this, I think he's in a great spot. It's a fantastic matchup for Liriano. He does have the 2nd highest strikeout per 9 rate on the slate. And then when Liriano is at least a minus 185 team favorite, is a plus minus of 2.98 points historically. So the thing that worries me, the only thing that I'm kind of worried about with Liriano is his advanced data and his inconsistency this season and really kind of throughout his career. So his average distance allowed, his exit velocity, and hard hit percentages are all way higher in the past 15 days than in the past 12 months. It's the only thing really holding me back. I still like the upside that he brings, and I love the matchup, obviously. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a close call whether I roll him in cash or kind of go another option, maybe Pomeranz. I'm not really in love with anyone too much on this slate since we had every single ace in the game throughout tonight. So it's going to be one of those kind of game time decisions I'll look at more in depth tomorrow. But these are kind of guys I'm looking at in cash. And then the guy I'm looking at in tournaments is John Lackey. And I don't really know how he's been so effective this year. He's 37 years old. But he gets to face the Brewers, who have the 2nd highest team strikeout rate against right-handed pitchers. Lackey, like you said, is tied for first with Cueto for the most projected strikeouts, according to our K predictor. He already has 2 games this season with over double-digit strikeouts. Somehow, I don't know how he's doing it, really. He's been going deep into games as well. So I'm perfectly fine with tournament exposure to Lackey, kind of especially on the slate where guys aren't standing out too much overall. So those are kind of my 2 pitchers I'm looking at. I also actually like Justin Verlander quite a bit as a sneaky contrarian tournament play.
Okay.
Let's go on with a pitcher that you're looking to fade on this slate overall. Who you got?
Yeah, so I wanted to go with someone who's actually rosterable. I'll get to a different guy later on that is going to get blown up tomorrow. But I went with Gio Gonzalez as a guy you shouldn't have in your lineups. First and foremost, he's probably going to give up a home run to Bartolo Colon, the great Bart Bino.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then in his last 4 starts, he's only K'd more than 5 batters once. That was against Miami last start. And I'm pretty sure that that slider you were telling me about yesterday probably could have had more success than Gonzalez did against the Marlins. The K predictor only has him at 4.8 Ks. And I've got you unofficially at 5.1 for tomorrow. So
nice.
I've got you outperforming Gonzalez.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that slider, if it is what you say it is.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was. It was that pitch back in the day. So definitely. Yeah, I like that call for sure. Gio's like the most terrifying pitcher ever to start in daily fantasy. You just never know if he's going to walk in the pitcher with bases loaded or something along those lines. So terrifying. The guy I'm looking at to fade a little bit is Taijuan Walker. I don't generally like taking a pitcher at Camden Yards as is. I think this is kind of a tough situation for Walker. His advanced data in the last 15 days is also trending downward. His velocity is down. His average distance allowed, exit velocity, and hard hit percentage are all significantly down. And this might be a bit contradictory using this as a negative, and Liriano not as much. But I think the difference between him and Liriano is that the Orioles can make Taijuan Walker pay for his recent bad pitching, and he's getting hit hard. His velocity's down. I think the Braves are not as likely to kind of make a pitcher pay for that. So I kind of am leaning on the fence of not having any exposure to Taijuan Walker, despite his pretty decent strikeout potential. Let's keep going on and talk about some batters on this slate. Now we got pitchers out of the way. Who are two intriguing batters you're looking at regardless of cash or tournament?
Okay, so the first guy of the elite batters actually probably could have gone with the value bats. Chris Herman with the Diamondbacks. He's only $3,000 on FanDuel. I think he's a little bit higher on DraftKings. He's a real treat for DFSers lately. He's still got the catcher tag on FanDuel, and he's been playing outfield. So it's such a thin position like catcher where no one really wants to pay up. You can basically get a fourth outfielder in your lineup. I've rostered him past two times in the past couple of days, and the other day he stole a base for me. And you get a catcher in your lineup, you don't expect to get a stolen base. So had to look twice at that. He moved up to the 2-hole for the first time on Tuesday. I don't know. Do you know? Do you expect him to be there again tomorrow?
It's kind of one of those situations. I think he's played 4 games in a row now. I'm not entirely positive that he will play. It's one of those things that, I think it could go either way. They've been juggling their lineup around a bit. They had Michael Bourne, Chris Owings hitting 2-hole consecutive games center field. Chris Owings went back to the 8-hole. They brought Herdman up to the 2-hole. So I don't know. I think it's a situation where if he does play, I think his price point, and especially if he's in the 2-hole again, Warren's pretty strong cash consideration. I played him in cash tonight as well on both sides. FanDuel, he's cheap as well. So I think it's one of those things we'll just monitor tomorrow before the lineups come out.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he dominates righties, and he's going against Eovaldi tomorrow. He's got a 322 WOBA, 254 ISO, 474 slugging percentage, just massive splits. I am a bit concerned if they do get to the pitcher and they get to the bullpen early. I'm a bit concerned that he would get pinch hit for since he struggles against lefties.
Yeah, no, it's a very valid point and a legit concern to have with guys like that.
Yeah. Average batted ball is 257, hard hit of 57% last 15 days. Less ground balls, more line drives. So, I mean, he's hitting the ball well. I think he only scored 7 points on Tuesday night, but it's not going to kill your lineup.
Nope.
My next guy is Adam Jones with the Orioles. He's 3,500 on FanDuel. Both my elite hitters are sub 4K tonight. So, but he's going against Taijuan Walker, who you talked about earlier. And this kind of came more with me wanting to get a piece of Walker, more so than falling in love with Jones first. But Jones is a big-time reverse splits guy, and I hope people look past the right-on-right matchup or just see the right-on-right matchup and don't roster him. He's got a 341 WOBA, 228 ISO, 488 slugging percentage this year against righties. His advanced stats are good, 24 feet further, 12% harder, faster, more fly balls, less ground balls. His fly ball rate's down, but his line drive rate's way up.
That's good.
He has seen a huge salary increase. He was 2,300, I think, a few weeks ago. He's up, obviously, 3,500 now, but his plus minus has been a positive 9.39 in his last 10 days. Of course, a lot of that is before the salary rise. So there's that. And the other thing I don't love about the game is it's got a poor weather rating right now, so it's something I'm going to monitor.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big thing to monitor, definitely, especially with hitters, distinguishing them between cash or tournament if there's some risk involved.
Mm-hmm.
Two guys I'm looking at. Well, the first guy I'm looking at on the slate definitely is Dexter Fowler. Kind of aside from getting exposure to the Cubs on this slate against Jimmy Nelson, they are implied to score 5 runs again. And I doubt they'll get no hit through 8 innings tonight into the 8th. So I doubt it'll happen again. But and all that. I think Fowler gets a great matchup on the bases, which is something I like a lot for this Cubs team. Jonathan Lucroy has allowed 27 stolen bases this season, which is the most in the league. Jimmy Nelson has allowed 9 stolen bases, second most in the league. So you look at this battery combined. This is a worse battery than the iPhone 4. So definitely take advantage of Fowler's stolen base upside. You can throw Hayward in there as well as another guy I like at the top of this order. Really, I don't think it's going against the grain saying I want some Cubs stacks and Cubs exposures. They're implied to score the most runs. So I look at the stolen base potential for Fowler, and he's a guy I'm kind of looking at in cash games with that upside hitting atop the lineup for a team expected to score that many runs. And another guy I really like hitting on this slate, you briefly mentioned the catcher position, how it's not that appealing. I guess if Herman does sit out or, if he doesn't play in this one, a catcher I'm looking at to pay up for, I guess you could say, is Brian McCann. Similar to Fowler, I like targeting teams, getting exposure teams who are implied to score a lot of runs because they have great matchups. So McCann stands out to me at the catcher position facing Shelby Miller, who's been by far one of the worst pitchers this entire season. He's not going deep into games. He has 23 walks, 22 strikeouts, so more walks than strikeouts in just 35 innings. So obviously pretty bad. So I like McCann a bit in a favorable spot in the lineup, which is rare on its own for a catcher, just with that position. A lot of them that hit in the bottom of the lineup, and then facing a pitcher is really struggling. So definitely looking for exposure to McCann on the slate. Let's keep it moving with some value hitters on FanDuel. Who are 2 guys you're looking at to save salary?
Yeah, so I'm about to pick on Shelby Miller a few times.
Nice.
I've got Carlos Beltran, 2,900 on FanDuel. He's split indifferent. He's a switch hitter. Split indifferent. I think that's important because I don't think Shelby Miller lasts too long in this game. Not going to be at a big disadvantage when they bring in whatever reliever they'll choose. He's been hitting a lot of fly balls lately, and he's 3-hole for the Yankees against Miller, who, like you said, he sucks. His advanced stats, average ball is going at 225 feet, hard hit 43%, exit velocity is 93. All 3 of those are among the worst in the slate for Miller. Sticking with that theme, Mark Teixeira is my other guy. He's 2,800 on FanDuel. And, people, I feel like they like to spin up at first base because there's so many elite options. And I think Tex gets forgotten about with his low price tag. We know how bad Shelby Miller is, right? You don't need me to repeat those stats.
No, he's horrible. Yeah, we know that. Yeah.
All right, so I'll skip over that part here. He's got a top 8 ISO among first basemen. Chase Field has a good weather rating for tomorrow. Obviously, things can change, but it's above 60, and when that happens, it gives hitters a positive 1.12 on the plus-minus. He's got a modest 5 pro trend. He's the second highest rated first baseman by the RAM. And 82% bargain rating. So,
yeah,
guys.
Definitely a good spot. I love Teixeira as a strong tournament player, and I agree. I think people do generally overlook him, and he's not the most consistent player, but he still does have that home run upside you're kind of looking for in tournaments. My first value hitter, and now I feel bad for Brian because he always takes DraftKings and I always do FanDuel, and it's so easy to find cheap guys on FanDuel, but it's really hard on DraftKings. You really – well, at least the threshold we set it at, which I keep raising, but whatever, we make the rules. So,
yeah.
But I'm going to double down actually on my Brandon Drury call and hope that he actually plays in this game. I don't know if it will be in place of Herman or if Herman will catch or play center and Drury plays right. So I'm kind of hoping that Drury gets the start in this game, and I'm hoping ideally he hits second like he was before. This is a home game against Evaldi, so I like the Diamondbacks quite a bit in this spot. It's just really hard to find value guys on DraftKings. Although I was one day late on my Tommy Joseph call that first night when he was min-price, he just he feasted tonight. Home run, 3 for 3, I believe, at min-price again. So pretty strong.
They sent him down after the game, though.
Did they? They're like, yeah, probably, yeah. You're doing too well, so. But yeah, Drury's price actually dropped. He's now just 2,600 on DK. So I think if he picks up a start and a pretty favorable lineup order, he's a guy I'm looking at to save salary on DraftKings. He has an 84% bargain rating. If he finds himself in the 2-hole, I'm for sure going to look at him hard. having cash exposure and spending all that money elsewhere, which you need to do on DraftKings. Another guy I'm looking at as a somewhat value hitter is Corey Dickerson for tournaments.
Yeah.
Pretty 400 on DraftKings. He has a 383 WOBA, 271 ISO against right-handed pitchers. He gets a big park boost as well. I like going into Toronto. So I'm looking to get some heavy exposure, tournament exposure to Dickerson, kind of on this slate with his upside, looking at him as a standalone play as well as part of a raised stack. So those are kind of my two value hitters, one for cash if he plays, and then another tournament play. And speaking of Dickerson and stacks, let's move on to the next topic. What's a stack that you're looking at on the slate that you like a lot?
Okay, so I'm going to mention two. I'm really big. I think the Yankees go off tomorrow, but their prices are so low that I think it's going to be really chalky. It's a really chalky stack tomorrow. So if you're going to stack the Yankees, I'd suggest doing something other than the 1 through 4. You mentioned McCann. He's hitting 5, or he's projected to get 5, right?
Yeah,
So I think a 3 through 6 stack might be good. The guys I'm going to talk about is Baltimore. Manny Machado, Adam Jones, Chris Davis, and Mark Trumbo. I think they have a really good chance to really do some damage. They are. Let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, I mean they're going against Taijuan Walker, like we already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He struggles. So I like the 2 through 5. All of them have a fair number of pro trends going for them. And right now they've got a team value rating of 65, which is respectable.
Yeah, definitely like those calls a lot. Team I'm looking at, I kind of went back and forth a lot, and I think that speaks volumes to how many teams are kind of in that similar range of, you look at the opposing pitcher and you're like, well, he's not great, but he doesn't get in like too much trouble, or his blow up potential is limited. This team, is in a good spot, but the park rating's negative, or they're in a good park rating, but the opposing pitcher's tough. So it's a lot of teams. I think you can go a lot of different directions. So I flip-flop back and forth a few times, but the team I'm looking to get exposure to in terms of stacks is the Indians. They get to face off against Brandon Finnegan, who already has given up 8 home runs this season in 8 starts, so about 1 a start. Not a great rate. But more importantly, the Reds' bullpen has just been atrocious this year. They allow the highest home runs per 9 rate out of all bullpens, and they have by far the highest ERA out of all bullpens. So ERA is not the most indicative stat, but it is, kind of right there on the surface. They're giving up a lot of runs. So I think you look at a guy like Finnegan who can get in trouble. He's not the greatest pitcher. I don't think he's going to shut the Indians down on his own. I think he'll give up a few runs, but I'm hoping for this Reds bullpen to come in and just get shelled by the Indians, leading to a lot of runs, especially if Finnegan's start is cut short. So I'm looking to get a bit contrarian with the Indian stack, just kind of hoping that the Reds bullpen can add to the fire once again.
Yeah, they've got they have a rookie throwing for them, the Indians, right, tomorrow? Clevenger making his debut?
Yep. Yeah, that's on the Indian side. Yeah. Right. So, yeah, the Reds aren't a bad stack either, honestly. So.
Well, I don't know. We were talking about a couple days ago. It's always intriguing to play the new guy. I mean, you can get him for $3K on FanDuel. It didn't work out the other day, but it's just so contrarian.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you can get the top guy at every single position. If the rookie making his debut does go deep into a game, then, he can pay big dividends.
And he dominated in AAA, so.
Right.
And there was an article, I think Friedman wrote it the other day. He had some stats to back up, something about and I shouldn't try to quote it because I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was something to do with basically if your guy is going to get shelled, then they tend to get a little bit more run support. And I might have just butchered that, but that's what I remember from it.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. It makes sense. So those are all things I think you want to look at, especially in tournaments, kind of distributing exposure around. Let's go on to the next topic, the stat of the day. What's an interesting stat that you found on this?
I'm going to keep picking on Shelby Miller.
Good.
He's got a negative 12.6 plus this season.
Wow.
Poor guy. He's not even close.
So bad, man. The Braves just fleeced that trade so hard. It's incredible. So obviously we're looking at getting exposure against him, I think in cash and tournaments. So definitely an interesting stat of the day, and he's like one of the worst pitchers in the league right now. My stat of the day is about another pitcher who's kind of fallen from grace. Actually, he had a lot more grace than Shelby Miller ever did, but Adam Wainwright has a 0% consistency rating this month. And the only other pitcher that has a 0% consistency rating is none other than Shelby Miller. So definitely not good company to be in. If you look at Wainwright on the season, he's allowed 34 runs in 45 innings this season, which is very un-Wainwright-esque. So, he's got a lot of problems. I kind of looked into it more in depth, thinking that maybe he's not throwing his curveball as much or he's getting in trouble, with walks. But really, he's throwing his curveball a lot this season at a career-high rate. The problem is that he's just throwing meatballs. Everything's right in the middle of the zone. He's leaving everything over the plate, hanging curveballs, and teams are just making him pay. So when you throw pitches in the middle of the plate, obviously bad things happen. That's why he's giving up so many runs. I honestly think if Wainwright were pitching in my awful men's league, he would get shelled. And our team, I think we have a run differential of minus 60 runs in 5 games. So it doesn't speak good terms of Wainwright this season. He's been really bad. So I think along with him being a strong fade, I'm pretty okay with getting tournament exposure to the Rockies as a sneaky stack away from Coors Field.
Cool.
All right, let's end it with our last topic. Let's get into the bold call of the day. What do you got for us?
All right, so I wrote this before I knew that you were going to stay away from Taijuan Walker, and I'm staying away from Shelby Miller. So those two combined, they're going to score less than 40 FanDuel points combined. So that's 20 per. I don't know, maybe I should go lower to be a little more.
I think you should say like under 6 or something.
They'll be negative tomorrow combined.
Yeah, it's not that hard for those guys to do. So
it's totally possible. I mean, 40 now that I say it out loud is too high. But that's what I'm going with. Just don't play them, guys. Okay.
Yeah, it's tough because you look at some of these large field tournaments, and in some of them you just want to get contrarian so badly that you look at these types of guys. But, there's just no signs pointing to anything positive for them. I think it's just very thin getting exposure to them. So, I'm on the side of I'll take the under on the combined 40 as well. I'm back with you. So, my bold call of the day is going back to the Reds bullpen. My bold call is that the Reds bullpen will actually allow more runs than their starter, Brandon Finnegan. So I'm hoping that he allows like 3 to 4, and then the bullpen just allows 22 to 27 or so. Something like
in that range, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think with the stack, with the bullpen allows 25 runs, I think you're looking pretty good in tournaments. So
might even take down a GPP.
It's possible. I think you'd break even in 50-50s too, even, which have been very tough this season. Lots of good players flooding the 50-50s and double ups. But cool. That about does it. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts on this slate? Like I said at the beginning, I'm treating this slate kind of – we've had 2 extremes. I feel like we had the extreme of a horrible slate and an extreme of an all-aces slate. This one's just kind of in the middle. We have 12 games, a lot of different teams you can stack. Do you have any thoughts on kind of how to attack this slate?
I don't know if we mentioned it all, but don't play Shelby Miller.
Yeah.
Bad game. So, that's all I've got.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's a slate where you don't want to get too cute with exposure with some of these bad pitchers, and then at the same time, I think for cash, you want to take advantage of these bad pitchers. Get exposure to these teams. They're implied to score a lot of runs because there's a reason they're implied to score a lot of runs. And then tournaments, you can kind of take these lower-owned teams we discussed in our stacks of the day and mix exposure to those teams. So that's it for the pod, you guys. We'll have a day off. Finally, no pod for the Thursday slate because there are just more day games. And Pete and I will actually be with you guys Thursday night to break down the Friday pod. Brandon, thanks a lot for joining the pod once again, even though we cut you off last time, but here you are. I have a feeling you'll make your way back on the pod sometime soon when things, the next person takes vacation, which we all need. So
Yeah,
thanks.
I might show up on Friday and crash the party.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm never gonna say I'm having a special guest again. So you've made it.
I made it. Yeah, there we go.
Yep, appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. And good luck, everybody, on this slate. We'll get with you guys next time.